This week, the Council of Cardinals meets again. There's more intrigue at the Vatican Bank. And what did Francis really think of the Synod? Hello and welcome to this edition of Vatican Connections. Pope Francis will create new cardinals in February. The Vatican spokesperson, Father Federico Lombardi, made the announcement while briefing journalists about the meeting of the Council of Cardinals, which took place this week. Now, the Consistory for new cardinals will happen on February 14th and 15th. Father Lombardi said that although the Pope has confirmed his plans to make new cardinals, he has not yet revealed who those cardinals will be. The other announcement made at the briefing, the Vatican's Commission for the Protection of Minors will announce new members very soon and hold a meeting of the fully formed commission February 6th to 8th. There are 8 members of the commission right now, and they want to expand to include 18 members who will represent different parts of the world. Pope Francis has given another blockbuster interview to the media. This time it's Argentina's La Nación newspaper. And he didn't shy away from questions about the recent synod, the ongoing Vatican reforms, and his own psychological well-being as Pope. Now, we'll have more on that later in the program when we talk with Elizabetta Pique of La Nación. Now, the recent synod on the family was always billed as the first part of an ongoing process. And this week, the Secretariat for the Synod of Bishops released the preparatory document for the next synod. This document is essentially the final relatio from the first synod, plus 46 questions that the bishops and their dioceses are supposed to answer together. The Vatican did not specify how bishops should involve their dioceses, they were just asked that they should find the best way to do so in order to make sure that the topics brought to the next synod accurately reflect what's going on in the Church and is well received. Episcopal conferences have to submit their answers to the Vatican by April 2015. The questions, I should say, are only available in Italian at the moment, but as soon as there is an English translation, we'll have that text up on our blog. And the Pope's message for the World Day of Peace was released this week. You might not know that the World Day for Peace is actually New Year's Day. His message focuses on the issue of modern-day slavery. Pope Francis says this holiday season, everyone can help end the evil of modern-day slavery by being responsible consumers and being aware that purchasing is a moral act, not just an economic act. Check our blog for the full text of the Pope's message. And there is more intrigue at the Vatican Bank. This time, the Vatican's chief prosecutor is opening an investigation into 3 former bank directors. According to the Vatican's spokesperson, Father Federico Lombardi, the investigation was opened, quote, on the hypothesis of embezzlement for real estate transactions between 2001 and 2008. He said current bank officials who have been analyzing the bank's assets and management procedures noticed some irregularities and reported it to the Vatican prosecutor Giampiero Milano. The bank accounts of those 3 men in question have been frozen. And on a sad note, Cardinal Jorge Mejia passed away this week at the age of 91. Now, you might remember during his first audience with the cardinals, Pope Francis mentioned that his friend, Cardinal Mejia, had a heart attack during the conclave, as did so many of us. A few days later, Pope Francis surprised everyone by quietly going to the hospital to visit the cardinal. Well, Cardinal Mejia's funeral was held Thursday at the Vatican. He was once the librarian at the Vatican Libraries and an early proponent of Catholic-Jewish relations. As we mentioned earlier, Pope Francis gave another blockbuster interview this past week. Now, this time it was to Elisabetta Pique, the Rome correspondent for La Nación, the largest Argentine newspaper. Pique is also the author of a book called Francis, Life and Revolution, and it's being hailed as one of the most comprehensive biographies of our Pope. Joining me on the line from Rome is Elisabetta Pique herself. Thank you for making time for us, Elisabetta. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Now, you've been at the Vatican since 1999, covering all things, not just the Vatican. So tell us, how did this book come about?
Well, I've been correspondent in Rome, and from Rome I have been covering since 1999, and also before different events, a lot of Middle East war. And well, being here in Rome also, I would cover, what would be since the beginning, when in 2001, Jorge Bergoglio, Archbishop of Buenos Aires, came here to be created the cardinal by John Paul II, and since then, of course, I would have been covering him when he would come to Rome. He was a member of different congregations, and so then also when I would go to Buenos Aires, for instance, when I went in 2003, my first book was Afghanistan, Iraq Diary of War, and I remember I went to see him and gave my book. So it started a kind of, relationship. Then, in the conclave 2005, he was here, so I also met him. And, the day that he was elected, I received a telephone call from a publishing house from Buenos Aires, from Argentina, quite important, asking me, if I would write a biography of the Pope. And at the beginning, I had my doubts, really, because, it's true, I knew him since 2001. Then it's true, he baptized the two kids that I had in Argentina. But to write a biography of the Pope was a real challenge. I got a team of investigation. I still don't know how I managed to write the biography. That it's a different one, because for sure a lot of people that knew Jorge Bergoglio since he was very young, and before he started studying to become a priest, people that was with him in school, schoolmates, and a lot of Jesuits that he met during his life, and so I think it's considered a really a portrait. The most accurate portrait about the man.
So the key word in the title of your book is revolution. Let's talk about that. What kind of revolution is Francis bringing to the Church? Is it style, is it governance, or is it something even deeper?
Well, since the beginning, since I saw him coming out from the balcony of St. Peter Basilica, you could see that it was starting a new chapter for the Catholic Church. Since the beginning, he chose this group of now are 9 cardinals from all over the world. This was a mandate that was given to the one that would have been elected to start a cleanup of the Vatican, of all these scandals we had seen in the past, of economics matters, financial matters, suspicion of mafia dealings, and he started this work that is not yet over about reforming the young Curia, because it has to function better to help all the Church, and to start also a process of a new kind of government, more collegial, more democratic, as the Second Vatican Council said. And beside that, there is what he called a spiritual reform. He's calling the Church to be a church that accompany people, the wounded people of today, and so also this is a message of change. He's asking the pastor to have the smell of the sheep, and he is proposing a church that is like a hospital camp after the battle, so a church that goes out and reach everybody in the peripheries, and in the peripheries he doesn't mean to go far away, but the peripheries that maybe if you have around your corner, that the excluded people, and this is a big change.
So in your interview with Francis, which was published over the weekend, the Pope seemed very unafraid to speak the truth, to basically tell it like it is. Now, was there any part of that interview that surprised you, or an answer in particular that stands out for you?
Well, I think all the interview surprised me because he even that I have the privilege of following him also in his trips, he is very in control of the situation, and I liked. He's also very spontaneous, authentic, and but of course he knows very well what to say, what not to say. He has very clear where he wants to go. I think it was very interesting what he said about the divorce and remarriage, speaking about the synod, when he said they are not excommunicated from the church, but they are de facto excommunicated because besides the question of communion, they can't be a godfather in a they can read the readings in the mass. They can do a lot of things. And so this question of we have to start opening doors, we have to start thinking maybe in other ways, no, of judging. And then I also, speaking again about he being himself, I like a lot when he confirmed what we already know, that when he came to Rome to participate in the conclave in 2013, he was someone totally ready to go and to retire. And when suddenly he was elected, and what he said is, I said to myself, Jorge, don't change, because to change at his age would be ridiculous. And also I like when he said, speaking about, he's very conscious that there are some resistances, and he says he's very tranquil, he's very serene. He has an inner peace. He's a Jesuit, and you see that he's realistic because he knows that there are different point of views of how doing things, about the decision he's taking, economic decision, pastoral decision, but he's totally tranquil. And I like when he said, God is good with me because he gave me a healthy doses of unconsciousness and to go on, no? And so I would point out this this inner peace that he has and he transmits, really.
Thank you so much, Elisabetta. That was Elisabetta Pique joining us from Rome. She is the Rome correspondent for La Nación and the author of Francis, Life and Revolution. Pope Francis spent most of the week meeting with the Council of Cardinals, but let's take a look at the public events he did take part in. Monday was the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, and as usual, the Pope took part in a time-honored Roman tradition. CNS has more.
O Maria, Madre nostra, oggi il popolo di Dio in festa ti venera Immacolata, preservata da sempre dal contagio del peccato. Accogli l'omaggio che ti offro a nome della Chiesa che è in Roma e nel mondo intero. In questo tempo che ci conduce alla festa del Natale di Gesù, insegnaci a andare controcorrente, a spogliarci, ad abbassarci, a donarci, ad ascoltare, a fare silenzio, a decentrarci da noi stesso per lasciare spazio alla bellezza di Dio, fonte della vera gioia.
Wednesday was the general audience. Pope Francis started a new catechesis series focusing on the family. He also took the opportunity to share a little bit about what went on during the recent synod on the family. And again, CNS brings us more.
Oggi desidero ripartire proprio dall'assemblea sinodale dello scorso mese di ottobre. Io ho chiesto ai padri sinodali di parlare con franchezza e coraggio e di ascoltare con umiltà, a dire tutto che avevano nel cuore, con coraggio. Nel Sinodo non c'è stata censura previa, non c'è stata. Ognuno poteva doveva dire quello che aveva nel cuore, quello che pensava sinceramente. Sempre quando si cerca la volontà di Dio in un'assemblea sinodale ci sono diversi punti di vista e c'è la discussione e quello non è una cosa brutta. Nessun intervento ha messo in discussione le verità fondamentali del sacramento di matrimonio. Nessun intervento. Cioè la indissolubilità, l'unità, la fedeltà, l'apertura alla vita. Questo non è stato toccato. Alcuni di voi possono chiedermi: ma padre, hanno litigato i padri? Ma non so se litigato, ma che hanno parlato forte, sì, davvero. E questo è la libertà, è proprio la libertà che c'è nella Chiesa. Tutto è avvenuto con Petro e su Petro, cioè con la presenza del Papa, che è garanzia per tutti di libertà e di fiducia, e garanzia dell'ortodossia.
After the audience, the Pope had an unscheduled private meeting with Christine Lagarde, the director of the International Monetary Fund. The Vatican did not release details of that meeting. Thursday was the funeral for Cardinal Jorge Mejia. Cardinal Angelo Sodano presided at the Mass, and Pope Francis arrived at the end to do the final commendation. Well, let's see who has a new job this week. Sao Paulo, Brazil has two new auxiliary bishops. Father Eduardo Vieira dos Santos and Father de Vera Rujo de Fonseca will be made bishops. Both are currently serving as parish pastors. Goya, Argentina is getting ready for a changeover. Father Adolfo Canesin has been named coadjutor bishop there, and he will automatically become bishop of the diocese when the 74-year-old Bishop Ricardo Pfeiffer retires. And Pope Francis has named Bishop Filomeno Diaz the Archbishop of Luanda, Angola, moving him from the Diocese of Cabinda. This week's Roman Profile gives us a closer look at the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, which is celebrated on December 8th.
The dogma of the Immaculate Conception is that Mary, from the first moment of her conception, was free of original sin. She's freed thereby of any need to overcome a deficiency in her will by which she would not habitually be open to choosing the good and choosing God. The origin of the feast, sometimes called the Conception of Mary, sometimes called the Immaculate Conception of Mary, dates back probably to the 9th century. When St. Thomas Aquinas came along in the 13th century, he held that by Immaculate Conception, those who were celebrating the feast meant that Mary received the singular privilege of being freed from original sin almost at the instant of her conception, but not from the very first instant of her conception. His concern was not to divorce the Blessed Virgin Mary from the rest of humanity, which needed and needs redemption by Jesus Christ. The Franciscans led by one of their great theologians, Duns Scotus, used the expression that through the merits of Christ, even though Mary lived before, of course, Christ's passion and death, but through the merits of Christ, our Blessed Mother was preserved from sin right from the moment of her conception. And in the end, that is the version that won the day and found its way into the dogmatic formulation of Pope Pius IX. The night before Pius IX proclaimed the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, the Dominicans in Rome gathered together in the Basilica of Santa Maria sopra Minerva to pray together that the Pope would not proceed with the dogmatic definition. The next day, the Pope did proceed with the dogmatic definition. The question, of course, is, did they all immediately believe? Well, I think it's unrealistic to expect that they believed immediately. Nevertheless, they were bound to try to figure out how to harmonize the need that everybody, including the Virgin Mary, has of redemption by Jesus Christ with the text of the dogma. A dogma is a proposition. That means a sentence or a couple of sentences which very pithily express a Catholic truth in such a fashion that that truth is not subject to being reformed or changed later on. Something like the Immaculate Conception means thought about whether she was conceived immaculately or redeemed in a special way a little bit later on is over.
Vatican Connections is interactive. We answer your questions and explain things you want to know. You can reach us on Twitter at VatiConnections or by email at info@saltandlighttv.org. We'll try our best to answer your questions during this part of our show. And that's it for this edition of Vatican Connections. And we're going to leave you with scenes from this week's Mass for Our Lady of Guadalupe, which featured the Missa Criolla, written by Argentine composer Ariel Ramirez in 1964. It is the earliest non-Latin Mass setting. The Mass parts are sung in Spanish, and the music arrangements feature elements of traditional Argentine music from various regions. And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook for regular updates. We'll be posting on our blog as well. From everyone here, thanks for watching and see you next time.
En las alturas, pasa a los hombres.